Let's discuss destructuring assignment. Arrays and objects help us to pack or structure our data. Let's look at an example of structuring data using arrays. Here we have an array which is assigned to the variable ARR. Here we have 5 elements in the array. We can say that we have packed 5 values into an array data structure. Similarly, let's look at an example of structuring data using objects. Here we have an object which is assigned to the variable obj, and we have 5 key value pairs here. We can say that we have packed 5 key value pairs into an object data structure. Let's look at the opposite process. How do we unpack data from arrays? Here we have an array ARR which has 5 elements. To unpack data, we use the square brackets and we specify the index within it. And similarly, let us look at how we unpack data from objects. We use the dot operator. If obj is the variable which is assigned an object literal here, then to get a hold of the property A, we use the syntax obj.a. Let us examine this term destructuring in the context of packing and unpacking that we have been discussing. If we are structuring our data by packing different elements into different data structures like objects or arrays, then the opposite process of unpacking those elements from those data structures can be called destructuring. The new destructuring assignment syntax will give us more concise ways of doing this unpacking. Let us look at a few examples of destructuring with arrays and objects. Let's start with arrays first. I'm in codepen.io and I have the JavaScript pane maximized here, and I have the console open. If you remember, clicking on the console tab here will open the console pane here. So we can do some examples now. The first example is basic variable assignment. The syntax for array destructuring can be seen in this particular line of code. On the left hand side of the equals operator or the assignment operator, we have const, and within square brackets we have the variable names a, b, c, and we are assigning them to an array which has 3 elements 10, 20 and 30. And what this does is pattern matching will happen, and A will be assigned the value 10, B will be assigned the value 20, and C will be assigned the value 30. So A is the first variable here, and so it will be assigned the first element in the array. B is the second variable here, and so it will be assigned the second element in the array. C is the third variable here, and it will be assigned the third element in the array. Let's run this example by clicking on run and see if we get 10, 20 and 30 that we expect. So we see that the output is as expected. So let's examine the syntax one more time. So we place the variable names within square brackets and we just assign it to the array, and pattern matching will happen, and the variables will be assigned values based on the positions of the variables on the left hand side and the elements on the right hand side within the array. The next example we'll look at is how to ignore some values. If you look at this line of code here, we have const, and then within square brackets we have a, space, c, and on the right hand side we have an array with 3 elements. So based on the previous example, we can guess that a will be assigned the value 10 and c will be assigned the value 30. But what about the value 20 here? Since we have an empty space here, 20 will be skipped. Let's run this example and see if the output is as expected. I'm clicking on run and we should see 10 and 30, and we see 10 and 30 as expected. Let's look at a quick variation of this example. Suppose we want to ignore the last element of the array. Then what we have to do is we have to specify a, b equals 10, 20 and 30, because all we want is the first 2 elements. So we only specify 2 variables on the left, and let's change this to b, and we are expecting 20 as the output. Let's clear the previous output here from the console and click run. We should see 10 and 20 as the output, and the output is as expected. Let us discuss how to assign default values via an example. Here we have 2 variable names a and b, and on the left hand side, if you notice, we see a equals 5, b equals 7, and then on the right hand side of the equals operator, we have only one element in the array. Like we discussed previously, pattern matching will happen. The first variable on the left hand side will be assigned the value of 1 here, which is a. So a will get the value of 1, and since there is no second element, the second variable, which is b, will be assigned the default value, which is 7. So let's run this example, and we can see that the output is as expected. A is assigned the value of 1 and b will keep its default value. Let us look at an example of swapping values. Here we have two variables a and b, and each of them have been initialized with values 1 and 3 respectively. To swap those values, we simply have to write this: a comma b within square brackets is equal to b comma a within square brackets, and that is enough to swap those values. Let's run this example. I've clicked run, and as we can see that now a is assigned the value of 3 and b is assigned the value of 1, and we can see that the values have been swapped. Let's look at an example of how to parse an array that has been returned from a function. Here we have a function f which returns an array with two elements in it, 1, 2. Here we are calling the function, so the output of this expression here will be the array 1, 2, and based on our previous examples, we can guess that a will be assigned the value of 1 and b will be assigned the value of 2. Let's click on run and see if that is the case. Let me clear the previous output. So I have clicked run, and let's see if we get 1 and 2 as the output. And so we have the output as expected. Let's examine this one more time. This function call will return an array which is this 1, 2, and pattern matching will happen, and a will be assigned the value of 1 and b will be assigned the value of 2. Next, let us discuss about the rest operator. If you see the statement here, we have some new syntax here, this dot operator, and this is called the rest operator. What we are doing in this line of code is we are saying we want to assign the value of 1 to a, and we want to assign the rest of the array to b. Let's examine this one more time. Here we have only two variables on the left, but one of the variables b has the rest operator. So the first variable on the left will be assigned the first element on the right, and the rest of the elements on the right, which are 2, 3, 4, 5, will be assigned to b as an array. So if we output the values of a and b, we will see that the value of a is 1 and then the value of b is an array 2, 3, 4, 5. Observe that the value of b is an array. This syntax right here is called the rest syntax, and rest syntax collects multiple elements and condenses them into a single element. The elements 2, 3, 4, 5 have been collected and assigned to the variable b by using the rest syntax. Let us next discuss about object destructuring assignment. Here we are doing some basic assignment. So we have obj, which is an object which has two properties a and b, or we can say it has two key value pairs, a:1 and b:2. And if we want to destructure this object, we have to specify the pattern like this. We have to specify the key name on the left and the variable name on the right. So here we have a key value pair within the object. So this is the key a and the value is 1. In the pattern, we have to specify the same key, and then we have to specify the variable name which is supposed to get the value. So this is the pattern that we have specified, a:x and b:y, and when this is assigned to obj, pattern matching will happen and x will be assigned the value of 1 because the keys match, and y will be assigned the value of 2 because the keys b and b here match. So let's examine this one more time. If we have an object with key value pairs, we specify the pattern as the key and then the variable name, and pattern matching will ensure that the variable name will be assigned the value when the keys match. Let's run this example and see if the output is 1 and 2. As you can see, the output is as expected. There are a couple of variations to this syntax. Let's suppose we want to use the variable name a instead of x. So in our pattern, we have a:a and then b:y. So let me replace x with a here. Let me run the example. Let's see if the output is the same. So the output is the same. In the special case where the key name and the variable name are going to be the same, we can drop the right hand side over here in the pattern. So we just can say a comma b colon y, and this syntax also should work. Let's run the example and see if it works. As you can see, it still works. Let's do the same for b. So let's specify b instead of y. Now, since the key and the variable name are the same, we can drop the right hand side. So let's do that. So now we have just a comma b. Let me change y to b, and let me run the example and see if it works. As we can see, the output is still the same 1 comma 2 as expected. When using destructuring, it is very common to use the same variable names as the property names to make use of this particular syntax right here. This syntax makes the code look very concise and readable. Let's look at another example. Just in case if you declare the variable names before the assignment like this. Here we have declared a and b on this line, and we are doing our destructuring on this line. In this case, we have to wrap our entire assignment statement with these brackets. Without these brackets, we will get an error. Let's do that and check once. I have clicked on run, and as you can see, we have a syntax error. So it is important to have the brackets enclosing the entire assignment statement, just in case you are declaring the variables on a separate line. Let's run this example now and see if it works. As you can see, now the example works. Next, let us look at how to assign default values. In the pattern on the left, we can just specify equals and then the values like this, and the variable names a and b will be assigned these default values. When this assignment happens, we can see that there is no key value pair with the key b. So a will match, and so a will be assigned the value 3 and b will keep its default value of 5. Let's run this example, and as you can see, the output is as expected, 3 and 5. Next, let us discuss the REST operator with respect to object destructuring. Here we have a comma b comma, and then we have the REST operator and then the variable name REST, and then we have an object here with 4 key value pairs. We have 4 key value pairs on the right, but we have only 2 variable names on the left. So just like arrays, we can guess that REST will be assigned the remaining 2 key value pairs. So REST will become an object which will have those remaining 2 key value pairs. Let's run this example and see if it works. So the output is as expected. Observe that the REST variable is an object with key value pairs. Next, let us look at an example of how to unpack fields from objects that have been passed in as function parameters. So here we have an object called user, and it has a few properties: ID, display name, full name, which is an object itself, and that has first name and last name. And we have a function here called user ID, which is destructuring this variable u and grabbing the ID property from u and returning that ID. Let us call this function user ID by passing in this particular user over here. So we are only interested in printing the value of ID from here. Let me run the example, and as you can see, the value is 42 as expected. We can modify this example to make this code even more concise. Instead of having a separate line to do our destructuring, we can specify that in the function parameter itself. So let me specify the destructuring pattern right here as a function parameter, and I'm going to remove this line, and let's see if this works. I'm clicking on run. Let's see if we get 42 as expected, and the output is the same. This particular syntax over here makes our code very concise and hence very readable. This clearly conveys the meaning that this user ID function is only interested in the ID property of any object that is passed to it. Let us look at an example that involves functions again. So we have a function called drawChart, and here we have the destructuring specified in the function parameter itself. And what we have done here is we have also assigned default values to these variable names. We have 3 parameters here: size, coords, and radius. And when we call this function here, we are only specifying the coords and the radius. We haven't specified the parameter of size. So when this function executes, what will happen is the size parameter will be assigned the value of big. Let us look at one more example involving functions. Here we have the user object, which has the properties ID, display name, full name, which is an object itself, and has first name and last name. We want to get a hold of the display name and the first name, which is within full name. So we want our output to be J Doe is John. So we know that in order to get hold of J Doe, we need to specify the display name key. So we do that, and then in order to get hold of the first name which occurs within full name, we need to first specify the full name, and then we need to specify first name like this. So now we have specified a pattern where this display name will match the display name over here, and the full name will match the full name over here, and the first name within it will match the first name over here. So the important point to note here is that even when we have nested properties, we can use pattern matching to do our destructuring. Let us run this example and see if it works. As you can see, the output is as expected. Let us look at one more example that involves nesting. Here we have an object called metadata, and it has these properties called title and then translations, which is an array, and then URL. And this is our line of code which does the destructuring. Observe that we specify the pattern to closely reflect the structure of the object. So we want to get a hold of the title and then this translated title which lies within this array over here. So to do that, we specify the pattern as the title over here so that it matches the title over here. And then since we need to get inside translations array, we specify translations, and then we specify the array, and within the array we specify the key name again, translated title over here. Again, this is an example of how to get a hold of the properties that are nested using pattern matching and destructuring. So let's run this example and see if it works. As you can see, we have been able to get a hold of the title and the translated title. Let us look at an example that involves combined array and object destructuring. Here we have an array that is assigned to the variable props and that has 3 objects within it. Suppose we need to get a hold of the name property of the third element in the array. In that case, we specify our pattern as follows. So our destructuring pattern will look like this. We skip the first 2 elements in the array, and in the third object we specify the property name as name over here, and that will do our destructuring as intended. Let's run this example and see if it works. As you can see, the example is fizzbuzz as we expected.